You know that feeling when you're around someone and you just feel drained? Or how the entire mood of a city can just shift almost overnight into fear? Well, today we're going to dig into a framework from our source material that says these aren't just random feelings. It argues they're actually tactics in a really ancient kind of spiritual warfare, one that's supposedly still being waged today. So let's break this whole thing down. This one sentence, right here, really gets to the heart of it. We're not talking about some far-off, shadowy government pulling all the strings. No, what the source is describing is something way more decentralized. It's a framework that tries to connect these ancient African spiritual ideas directly to modern-day power grabs. It's a whole different way of looking at control. So, to really get a handle on this framework, we have to start with the predators that are described in some traditional African belief systems. And look, these aren't monsters from some bedtime story. They're basically archetypes of people or even forces that are said to feed on the life force of other people. Okay, what's so wild about this is how specific these predators are. Take the Ajay. They're not just some generic witch, they're masters at manipulating emotions. They literally turn a community's fear and envy into their own personal power source. Then you've got the Befo. That's the corrupt insider, the person who uses their position to just drain your confidence, your potential. And the Wachawi? They actually outsource the dirty work, using other spiritual entities in this parasitic relationship, where the victim's despair is what's for dinner. So, what is it they're actually feeding on? According to this worldview, it's not just life in some vague sense. No, it's very specific kinds of spiritual energy. It's the very stuff that makes a person charismatic, successful, and, alive. Let's start with Ashe. The best way to think about this is like your divine right to make things happen. It's your creative spark, your ability to succeed. So when a predator attacks your Ashe, they're not just trying to make you sick or something. They are literally trying to steal your ability to shape your own destiny, turning everything you try to do into a dead end. And then there's Sunsum. This is like your personal mojo, your charisma, that inner light that just naturally pulls people and good opportunities towards you. So an attack on your Sunsum is meant to just dim that light. It leaves you feeling isolated, unlucky, and spiritually invisible. It's a straight-up assault on your confidence. And finally, we have Moya. Now this is the big one. It's the breath of life itself, the universal spirit that connects every living thing. An attack here is meant to make your spirit feel heavy or polluted. It's basically a kind of spiritual suffocation, and it's designed to push you into total despair, which then becomes the feast. And this is the pivot. This is the whole point. The source material argues that this isn't just about some personal grudge or a village squabble. No, this exact same model of creating fear and despair to harvest energy, it can be scaled up. It can be used according to this framework to control an entire nation. Let's see how the source applies this to a real-world situation. The source material we're looking at points directly to recent events in Tanzania as a perfect example of this whole theory in action. It doesn't just see the political events as a coup, it interprets them as a very carefully planned, large-scale spiritual harvest. I mean, just look at this sequence of events. First, you've got the president who resisted the global narrative. He dies, mysteriously. His replacement comes in and immediately changes course. Then, right before a really contentious election, there's a call for a military coup that creates total chaos, and the guy who calls for it just vanishes. Then you have the election, and boom, a total shutdown of the country's infrastructure. The source argues that every single one of these steps was designed to systematically create and then amplify fear across the entire nation. This was the official margin of victory for the new president. I mean, it's an almost unbelievable number. And according to the source, a number like that wasn't random. It was chosen for its numerological significance, kind of like stamping a ritualistic seal on the whole political takeover. And this slide really shows the result, as our source describes it. The claim is that the goal wasn't just to win an election, it was to create a very specific atmosphere. Tanks on the streets, people disappearing, total censorship. The whole point in this view was to take a joyful, vibrant population and plunge them into silence and terror. The entire nation became a farm, producing that exact negative emotional energy we were just talking about. And that is the absolute core claim from the source material, that this entire operation, from the president's death all the way to that 5-day blackout, was a form of mass ritual. It was a political coup designed to harvest what's known as loosh. That's the spiritual energy of fear, of chaos, of despair, from millions of people all at once. It was, in effect, an act of national-scale spiritual cannibalism. So, okay, if this is the modern battlefield that the source is laying out, what in the world does defense look like? Well, the framework suggests that just as the attacks have evolved, so have the ways to protect yourself. This comparison is just fascinating. In the traditional sense, you had a defender like the Babalawo, who could diagnose a spiritual attack. The modern equivalent, as proposed here, knowing how to use a VPN to get around a state-imposed information blackout. You're diagnosing an attack on information and prescribing a technical solution. The Sangoma would cleanse spiritual pollution. The modern version is practicing spiritual hygiene, consciously refusing to let fear and propaganda pollute your own mind. The principle is exactly the same: active, aware self-protection. It's this huge shift from relying on some outside expert to becoming your own digital and spiritual guardian. And that just brings us right back to the beginning. The source argues that the real threat isn't some far-off, mysterious group. It's a decentralized network. It's the media personality who's spreading fear. It's the neighbor who is just consumed by envy. It's the bureaucrat creating despair with their policies. The loosh farmers are all around us, integrated into the very ecosystem of our society. So the crucial takeaway here isn't about waiting for some big, grand awakening to happen. According to this framework, the real work is constant. It's personal. It's about being vigilant about what you let in, how you react, and the kind of energy you allow into your own life. And it leaves us with a really provocative question. In a world that this framework claims is designed to harvest our fear, is simply managing your own spirit the ultimate act of rebellion?